Welcome! Today we're going to be analysing every single overclock for the Scout's GK2 assault rifle. For a baseline, the majority of our simulations will be using this build, and this is what we identified from the gear mods analysis video. These are all of the mods that I've used to help me make this video, and I want to thank the creators of them also. Compact ammo is pretty straightforward with a little bit extra magazine, a little bit better recoil, and we can see this side by side with just our no gear mods for a base accuracy. If we bring in floating barrel here, because compact ammo is kind of about half a floating barrel, so we can really start to see the actual difference between what you would get with that 50% better recoil compared to 30% better recoil. Let's examine this +5 magazine now, and on the left hand side we've got our average build with no overclocks. The right hand side is exactly the same, but we've got compact ammo, and you can see that it's actually going to take us one less reload, so effectively saving us time to take this Praetorian down. A magazine increase of only 5 can make a difference to when we're taking on targets. Compact ammo effectively gives us half of the tier 3 recoil and half of a tier 3 magazine. This does improve our average build, but it's not a huge improvement. One last thing I want to have a look at with compact rounds is instead taking the extra magazine to give it an additional +15 and take hardened rounds for an anti-swarm build. A larger magazine can give you more sustained firepower. Here we can see 2 reloads on the left, just 1 reload on the right, and this effectively saves us time, and we can just consistently bring that DPS to the grunts coming towards us. And this is even with just spamming a trigger rather than tap fire. A larger magazine can seem like a no-brainer, but with the GK2 we have to think about its abysmal rate of fire. Here we can see the Praetorian turns, and I haven't even got halfway through the magazine because the rate of fire is so low. Obviously a higher magazine is going to be great against swarms, but against high priority targets, damage and rate of fire could be better. Gas rerouting is really underwhelming, so let's fly through this and straight into the reload speed, and you can see on the right hand side we do get a tangible benefit. Interestingly enough, when I put in animation cancelling above, it actually takes longer. Now I just assumed I'd made a mistake, so I went back, re-recorded all of the footage, did a frame perfect comparison, and it still takes longer. So at certain quicker reload speeds you get diminishing returns and then even negative returns. Rate of fire is an issue the assault rifle has, and we can see on these charts how long it takes to empty a magazine of 25 or 35 on the right hand side. Our standard rate of fire options are 7, 9 or 11, but we can see on this chart going to 8, 10 or 12 doesn't really make a huge difference. Homebrew Powder gives us inconsistency, but an overall damage boost if we average it out. We can see this on the left hand side only doing 13.9, but we are dealing some more than that on the Homebrew Powder. Slowing this down completely, you can see these 11 damages, but we've also got that 18.4. And if we advance to the death of this Praetorian, on the left hand side you can see it's taking a little bit longer. We've already finished on the right hand side. It's also 60 ammo for the Homebrew, where it's 71 for our gun with no overclock. Something to also consider is there is the chance with Homebrew Powder not to kill a swarmer in one shot. That can be a deal breaker for some people. Homebrew Powder also kind of forces us into taking 18 damage and then losing that 100 ammo. Obviously our 6,750 damage potential on that chart is going to be higher because of Homebrew Powder, but there are probably better overclocks on this list. Overclocked firing mechanisms resolves one of the main weaknesses from the assault rifle, and that is rate of fire. It comes at a heavy cost, and that is recoil, and we can see these in these side by sides. Here on the right hand side it really going violently and sort of kicking back and going all over the place for these crosshairs. I also tried this with gyro stabilization to see whether that would help, and it does help with that initial accuracy. Now this of course is just unloading the entire magazine. With gyro stabilization you want to tap fire to make sure you bring that accuracy back in. Against a Praetorian with this amount of rate of fire, it is really nice to try and unload that magazine and get that damage in. With fire rate freed up, I thought I'd use a different build. Gyro stabilization so we can get that tap fire at range, going over to damage and a higher magazine so we can really unload sustained damage either to the Horde or to larger targets. Unfortunately this build puts us to the far right of that damage potential, but only into second place for our 17 damage and our weak point bonus. One of the best things about this build is with a rate of fire of 10, we can unload a whole clip of 35 in 3.5 seconds, and we've got 595 damage in that clip, so we can dish out a load of damage in a short amount of time. In this simulation you see me tap firing just to reduce the health on some of those slashers. As the health goes down I know I can rely on battle call to then unload a sustained burst into them. And now once we get to the Praetorian, with the larger magazine and the additional rate of fire, I can take it down really quickly and without those additional reloads. This overclock performed better than I expected, but is it better than others on this list? We'll have to wait and see. Electrifying Reload reduces our direct damage but applies that electrocution damage over time, so effectively we can lose time but gain ammo efficiency. Against this Praetorian on the right hand side, I did smaller, shorter bursts of Electrifying Reload, allowing myself to apply that electrocution and that slow, get that damage over time to try and save that ammo by the end of this. And as we can see, I have saved some ammo, but it's come at a really dramatic cost in time. We can of course save time by holding down the trigger longer, but then we lose ammo efficiency. Now this overclock is more designed for hordes, so let's look at some simulations now for that. Rightly or wrongly, I tried this build in some simulations. The idea is taking gyro stabilization at tier 1, so I can have that pinpoint accuracy to try and hit a weak point and apply stun, and then obviously when I reload, I then apply the electrocution. I decided to run this side by side with a static defense point such as an uplink and see what difference our average build on the left hand side makes to our then electrifying build on the right hand side. So obviously we can see that stun being applied and that slow being really helpful. That stun and slow has really helped us with the crowd control, and now on this left hand side, I've knocked off a few extra ammo because we actually got a few hits and I forgot I had fawns on, but on the right hand side, look at this for ammo efficiency, it's off the chart. Helping this ammo efficiency is the fact that Electrifying Reload applies one of the highest amounts of damage over time when using electrocution, and this is because it lasts for 6 seconds rather than a standard electrocution of 3 on something like the Stubby. Now we must keep in mind that depending on the build, unless we want to take a hit in ammo, it is going to take us 2 shots to kill a swarmer or 1 shot and a reload. The GK2 assault rifle's already got a lack of damage and rate of fire, and AI stability engine just doubles down on those. We do gain this super pinpoint accuracy, and we've got that plus 40% weak point bonus damage, but that minus 2 damage is going to negatively impact that plus 40% anyway. Against this Praetorian on the left hand side, we've got our average build with no overclock, and you can see that that slower rate of fire on the AI stability engine is really making us hit armor, it's taking us longer to try and get around to the better angles, and actually it consumes more ammo because of that slower rate of fire and not hitting the weak point. Now I know you might be saying that's not a fair test, we had some bad shots there, and AI stability engine probably benefits from having maximum amount of damage. So now we've got on the right hand side pure damage, and yes, it does take less amount of ammo, but interesting enough, with that slow rate of fire, it actually still takes longer to take the Praetorian down. I also wanted to see how an IFG grenade might impact that damage, and we can see 20.6 on that right hand side. It's only 2.6 more than with our gun with no overclock. Bullets of Mercy seems pretty straightforward at first glance, but there's a few extra details I wanted to examine. On the left hand side, we can see having 2 status effects doesn't increase the damage any further, and on the right hand side we can see that elemental resistances don't come into this damage. I also wanted to test this with IFGs. IFG applies that kind of electrocution symbol even to targets which can't be electrocuted, and it still does the same damage even without having it ignited. And I just wanted to double and triple check that when it came to the Dreadnoughts. So on the left hand side we've got our base build with no overclocks dealing 12.2, Bullets of Mercy dealing 12.2 on the right hand side, and then we can see going over to the IFG with doing 15.9 on that left hand side, and obviously with Bullets of Mercy we're not just getting the IFG, we're also getting that plus 33% on the Lacerator. We can make a few easy adjustments to our average build to help out Bullets of Mercy, so either going pure damage and obviously putting that stun in at the end to help us get that plus 33% bonus, or potentially instead of having that plus 1 damage at tier 3, go for an extra magazine to compensate for that minus 5. If you keep running into ammo problems with this build, you could try gyro stabilization at tier 1 to really tap fire and focus on those weak points. Comparing pure damage or magazine size, and you can see the damage difference isn't a huge amount, even if we consider IFG grenades also. Factoring in time, and you are going to have additional reloads of that magazine of 20, as we can see against these slashers, and it also goes the same with a Praetorian, 1 additional reload, so you are going to lose some time there. I think if you're going to use Bullets of Mercy, play around and see whether you can get away with a magazine of 20, or if you want more sustained firepower with a magazine of 30. First off, we have our clean overclocks, and I think basically they're all a bit useless, to be honest. The GK2 assault rifle is lacking rate of fire and damage, and none of these truly resolve that situation. I really had zero expectations for both of these overclocks, but running these simulations I have been pleasantly surprised. Electrifying Reload on the left hand side, and as we saw earlier, the ammo savings you can get is absolutely insane, but it really changes your playstyle. It now becomes a really slow and considered, doing those little pop shops with the gyro stabilization, applying that electrocution, and really kiting around. How well that is going to work in a really bad situation or a big swarm or with 4 players, it's a difficult one. It is an interesting playstyle. And on the right hand side, overclocked firing mechanism, especially with the gyro stabilization and battle call, we can really dish out so much DPS in a short amount of time and mitigate that recoil problem. But it doesn't give us a big damage increase, and that's what we're going to look at now with Bullets of Mercy. The extra damage that Bullets of Mercy can get across with only the negative of -5 magazine really puts it in just to the top of this list for these overclocks. And we can see this with this damage in these side-by-side examples. Just Bullets of Mercy just bringing so much more to the table. This is going to save you ammo. Also, it's going to give you a quicker time to kill. Potentially mitigating that lack of rate of fire that also impacts GK2 assault rifle. This is a theme I just kept coming back to whilst making this video and in my discussions with other high-level players. Bullets of Mercy just performs really consistently against larger targets, against the Horde, at different ranges, and especially if you back this up with a fire shotgun and IFGs, it can really just do it all, and that's why I'm recommending it as the top of this list. The link for my next video should be somewhere around the top right of the screen, somewhere hopefully. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you next time.